There we go. Okay, so to get started with our Texas Master Naturalist Virtual Volunteer Fair May 2022 edition, our fourth in this program series, we've got some meeting etiquette that we always like to start all of our events off with. The first is that our videos have been turned off for all of our attendees and for our presenters that are not currently speaking. You'll see that you can see right now Michelle and Judith and I, as we are the hosts for today's event. But then when it is our panelists' turn to speak about their project, we'll turn our videos off in order to be able to give them the due attention for their projects as needed. We're asking for any of our additional panelists to stay muted. Our attendees cannot unmute, so don't worry if you're an attendee. This is your first WebEx event. You cannot unmute and you cannot share your video, but you can chat with us. And hopefully you've seen that we've started some chat this morning so far. In our chat room, please use clear questions. Michelle and I will be moderating that to our project host today. And we want to be able to ask the questions that you're intending for us to ask. So if you've got clear and full sentences with those questions, we can make sure that we get those asked appropriately. If you will select chat to everyone, that way everybody gets to be involved in the conversation. It also guarantees that your question gets eyes on it so that we can make sure that we ask that if there's time permitted. Chat is requested to be only on presentation topic and of course respectful and professional. Our chat is going to be recorded and posted post-event as well. You'll notice that the event recording has started. Our event recording will be posted on our website, if not by the end of the day today, first thing tomorrow morning. And our agenda is fast and furious. I related to our virtual volunteer fair event to speed dating the other day when I was talking to somebody about it. It's speed dating for projects. Our volunteers are looking to sign up to join these projects, and so our project hosts have a short 15-minute window to sell that project to our volunteers and to maybe get a second date in there. If you are a Master Naturalist volunteer, you are welcome to come in and come out throughout the day, or throughout the event today. Will run until right at about noon or so, as you find projects that you're interested in, or projects that you want to speed date with a little bit today.
And just to clarify too, we have organized the fair for Master Naturalists, and so that is our first and foremost audience for these projects here today as well.
Yes, exactly. So our presenters are fantastic project hosts that are going to be showcasing their projects to our Master Naturalist volunteers today. Have a lot of information that they're going to try and pack into that 15 minutes. And some of that information is their descriptions, the overview, the expectations that they have within their projects, what they see those volunteers doing, the logistics of those projects that those volunteers will be participating in, any equipment, experience, or advanced training that those Master Naturalists may need or want to participate in that project, if needed, and then what's in it for you, what makes you as a Master Naturalist excited about participating in that project. Those are those benefits for you. And then additionally, if there is specific location needs and contact information as well. So where can you get more information? I'm going to drop this link in the chat real quick. But our virtual volunteer fair page is the best website to go to for all things information that you may need for today's event. As you are wanting more information, the recording will be here, the project descriptions are here, the survey link that we're going to talk about here in just a second is going to be on this website as well. So we'll drop this link in the chat throughout the day today, but if you haven't bookmarked it already, please bookmark it. To find it, it is on our Naturalist News page on our website as well. And again, on that website we have the full catalog. Each of our project hosts have submitted a full 2 pages on their project, and that is in our catalog. So please check out that catalog. It's got a ton of information that is available for you as if you're interested in these projects.
The presentations today will be the digest version.
Exactly, exactly. Michelle, if you'll tell us how to sign up to volunteer.
So the next question after you see these presentations is how do I volunteer? How do I get signed up? We have a survey for that, and we're using SurveyMonkey for this. What you'll do is we'll be dropping the link to the SurveyMonkey after each presentation, each project presentation today. So you'll just add your name to the list there. You can also wait till the end of the day after you've seen everything and add your name to specific projects that interest you on that survey. That survey will be held open until June 1st, so you likely will not, after that, we'll close the survey, we'll get the names and contact information to the presenters, and then it's in the presenters' court after that to go through the list, get in contact with you as an interested person to be volunteering on the project, and then get you set up for the next steps in that project. In some cases, there's a little bit of additional advanced training that needs to be presented and coordinated for you in order to better prepare you to work on that project. In some projects, the presenter and project host may want to learn a little bit more about you and your skills and abilities, and maybe fit different volunteers to different pieces of the project where their skills align. And so after June 1st, the project presenters will follow up with the volunteers that has signed up through the survey. And just to let you know, as we've seen in all of our virtual volunteer fairs in the past, is that typically many more volunteers sign up for a certain project than there are spots available. So don't be alarmed if you don't get placed with that project or hear back from that project fair, because sometimes sometimes the project hosts are a little overwhelmed with just the sheer number of people that are interested in working on their project, and that's a good thing. Go ahead to the next slide. Today's event, the Virtual Volunteer Fair, you are eligible to receive training time for that. Sorry, I need another cup of coffee. You can go to the VMS quick guide for more information. And I think Mary Pearl will be also, she just dropped it into the chat there. How do you log hours for today? So today you can track time to the nearest quarter hour for each of the sessions that you attend. We won't be counting time for breaks. But each of the sessions that you attend will be 15 minutes long, including questions. So the maximum time to report could be up to 2 hours today. And it may be different for each volunteer depending on which sessions you attend. Remember that you can pop in and out to attend or visit on sessions that interest you or as your schedule allows today. So only report the sessions that you attended. Okay, next slide. And then the second question we usually get is, how do I log hours for the projects? Again, we have described that in the VMS quick guide or volunteer management system quick guide. And we'll be dropping this information in the quick guide as you go. Basically, each project is going to need to be set up, reviewed and approved at your local chapter level and set up for you to contribute hours to in the VMS system. And then our guide covers any of the other questions related to that we have received in the past. If there's a question that isn't addressed, feel free to ask any of us to get more clarification on getting a project reviewed, approved, and set up with your local chapter level. Next slide. And then our agenda, we mentioned earlier that it will be fast and furious today. we're here at 9 with the introduction. And then Judith Green will be our MC today and for the session. And we will announce as each session comes up or each project opportunity comes up, we'll announce the project name. In the case of the first three projects, they apply specifically to chapters within the Gulf Coast Prairies ecoregion because of the topic and the training that they've already received that enables them to be the best volunteers in this area for those projects. Starting at 10 o'clock, we have the remainder of the projects for the day are all statewide projects that any of our chapters, any member from any location would be able to contribute to. And then with that, I think, oh yes, questions. Again, Judith, myself, or Mary Pearl are available for questions. You can email us. We will be also moderating the questions in chat today. And then even if there's anything after the fact, when the virtual volunteer fair is over, you can contact us with your questions. And then now, I think with that, I'm going to turn over to Judith and get us started with the first presentation.
Good morning, everyone. We do have about 3 more minutes before our first speaker comes on, but Gabriel, if you'd like to go ahead and unmute yourself and put on your video so that we can see you. I will introduce you here in just a second. Just want to make sure. Go ahead and share your screen as well so we can prepare.
All right.
Can everybody hear me okay? All right. So we'll be starting in about, I'll introduce Gabriel in about 1 minute. And we are going to just kind of, if we do have time between speakers, we will be waiting for the actual time to begin. So that way, if anybody is joining for a particular talk, they will be able to hear that talk at that time.
Can everybody see?
I can see your screen, yes, sir.
And hear me? I can tell as well.
Yes, yes, yes.
Because you answered.
Yes, yes.
I can hear
Wonderful.
you well, and the presentation looks great.
Great, thank you.
And I will, did you want to leave some time for Q&A at the end?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I will probably pop in about with 2 minutes left in your talk, and that way we can see if there's any questions. So I'll kind of give you a heads up with 2 minutes left to kind of help you wind down, and we'll open it up for a few questions.
Sounds great.
Unless you, of course, end early.
I do talk fast sometimes in the morning when I'm drinking coffee, so it is known to happen.
All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and get started with introducing Gabriel. Let's see, I'm sorry, okay. So Gabriel Durham is from Houston, Audubon, and he will be presenting Edith L. Moore Sanctuary Stewards, the project there in Houston. And with that, I think if you can wait just a few more minutes or a few more seconds, we will get started here. How's Houston doing this morning as far as rainfall? Any?
Just muggy and overcast. So probably going to get some rain, but not officially dumping yet.
All right. Well, Gabriel, it is time, so please feel free to get started.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for having me. My name is Gabriel Durham. I'm, as we've said before, the volunteer manager for Houston Audubon. I actually just started back in March, so this is officially the beginning of my 3rd month, and I'm so excited. But I have a long history of volunteer management from Herman Park and University of Houston, and I'm also a Texas Master Naturalist myself. So really happy to be helping with these connections and these linkages. And before I dive in, just in case anybody doesn't know about Audubon Society, it's a pretty big, pretty old naturalist group and nonprofit founded by the folks related to James Audubon, who is the guy who documented all of the birds of North America when he as a recent immigrant, and started a very big movement for the cataloging of birds and the cataloging of naturalism in America for quite some time. So we're the Houston chapter of that. And while it says Houston, our sanctuaries actually range all the way from here down into Galveston and across the Gulf Coast and Bolivar Peninsula. We have 14 different sanctuaries that actually cover over 4,000 acres of property that is all being managed for bird conservation. Though I like to point out to folks that birds are an indicator species. So if the birds are doing well, it means a lot of other things are doing well. So if you're a naturalist that's into plant life, that's into bug life, or even if you're a herper instead of a birder, that's herpetology for the snakes and reptile folks, these habitats are all great for these general networks of connections, and the birds are kind of like the big indicator of how well we're doing our job. And of course, our job is to maintain this land for birds and also help maintain a good educational environment to help people understand the connections that birds have to the rest of the world, even the greater economy. A lot of people throw numbers around, but it's certainly certain that birding in Houston and in Texas is a billion-dollar industry between tourism and all kinds of other things. So it's quite the big field that Houston Audubon covers, and we have so many opportunities. But today, I wanted to focus on our Sanctuary Stewards program, and in particular, our Edith L. Moore. So I'm going to go ahead and dive into the presentation. Alrighty. Oh, come on. Stuck. There we go. All right. So let me go ahead and move this out of the way so people can read. Sorry to cover up the Master Naturalist logo, but here we go. So what are Sanctuary Stewards? Specifically, they're, like I like to say, a museum docent, but outside with wildlife. Our Edith L. Moore Sanctuary is what some people would call a hidden gem over on the memorial side of town, about 5 minutes from the Beltway and Memorial Drive. It is specifically a bird sanctuary, though it is used for so many other things in the community. This is many people's backyards. This is adjacent to a church and Boy Scout troops. So for those that know about it, it is a very, very special place. Lots of people have been coming to Edith L. Moore for 20, 30 years, have raised families there. And if you've never been there before, I gotta say, it is a very, very special property. I've been all over different natural zones as part of my naturalist training and my own personal passions. But this is a very special park. We have a cabin on property where that was Edith L. Moore's that she donated as part of the land. We have a Rummel Creek that runs through the property as well, and it's just generally a wonderful place to hang out. However, just like a lot of nonprofits, we could use a little bit more help having a presence in the sanctuary. So if you want to sign up to be a steward and come out with us, the primary things we're looking for is for you to be in the park, for you to observe what's around you like a good naturalist, but also be a part of our community engagement in that we're looking for folks who can answer questions for visitors like, hey, is the bathroom open? Also, oh, I heard there's a pileated woodpecker in the park. Can you tell me the last place we saw one? As a matter of fact, we might have two that are fighting for territory. So we also needed people to help look out for issues. So because we are a bird sanctuary, dogs can be a bit of an issue from sniffing around for ground nesting birds or, maybe leaving some deposits on the trail. We don't want them to leave. So we need some folks to help remind people that, hey, no, we don't want dogs on the trails, or please walk them somewhere else. These kinds of things. And sometimes we might even ask you to help lead other volunteers. So if you have a friend who wants to come out and maybe do some iNaturalist work, or maybe wants to do some invasive removal, since you'd been out before, you would be the kind of person who could train them if a staff member wasn't there. However, I like to take the pressure off and remind folks you're not a cop, you're not a staff member, so you're not there to do these higher level things or that kind of stuff, but just be in the park as a presence, just like a museum docent, as I started with. So let's go a little bit more into some clarifications about what that looks like. The main time we need help is going to be on the weekends, particularly Saturdays and Sundays. Again, that has to do with staffing issues and peak business in the park. So it's open to weekends, though sometimes we can flex on that if you're not available on weekends. And we are open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. You can have a shift as long as you like, or you can be out there all day if you're a really serious birder. But we mostly need help at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day to help, get people in and out of the space. And also, that's also, frankly, the best time for birding if you're into that kind of part of your naturalist bent. Again, we're near Memorial Drive and Beltway 8, so we're on the west side for folks who are particularly in that zone or willing to drive over to there. We like to have 2 people per shift because we found that camaraderie is really good, because that way you can check in on each other, maybe build a friendship, and these kinds of things. But we've had just 1 before if you just want some solitude to walk around. And the good thing about this opportunity is it is year-round. So if you wanted to do, if you can't do it now, or if you happen to move sometime or find yourself on the side of town, it's not time bound. So you don't need to worry about, oh, I need to make it for this project for a certain number of months or certain number of days. So please let us know when you might be interested. And it can be accommodated pretty flexibly, which is, I think, a pretty cool opportunity. Just a little map so you can see where we are and where our other sanctuaries are. So this blue box over here, here's Edith Elmore, so you can kind of see the beltway here is this circle. Here's Highway 6. And so we're just at the edge of the beltway right here at this green star. And just so we can have a little bit more information about Audubon, within the city limits, we also have a Raptor and Education Center. If you're interested in opportunities there, however, they're a little bit harder to get a hold of because they are booked pretty solid. And then we also have all of our sanctuaries over here on the coast that are for spring migration, very popular at the moment. Bolivar Flats over at the end of Bolivar Peninsula, and Dos Vacas Muertas over on Galveston, which is, again, a pretty hidden gem a lot of folks don't know about. But for this opportunity in particular, we're looking for Edith Elmore. So this is for people who are in this section of town who might be able to come more regularly. And while the opportunities are year-round, we do ask for a certain amount of commitment. So if you are going to come out, try to make it a regular shift. So every Saturday, every other Saturday, once a month on a Wednesday, something like that, so we can keep it a regular expected stewardship role. So as far as onboarding goes, the most important thing is to get the email address right, which is volunteer@houstonaudubon.org. We're also going to get the list from Texas Master Naturalist, as they've already said. So if you don't have a pen and paper to write this down with, that's all right. Just use the SurveyMonkey link at the end of this whole presentation, and they'll get you in contact with me. Our sanctuary manager, her name is Barry Moffett, and she's the one who would do all the training. So once you and I get linked up and we start to talk a little bit about your interests and your schedule and all that kind of stuff, we would get you looped in with a sanctuary manager for your training. Which would usually consist of, where to find trash bags, what the different park rules are, the different entrances that open and close as things go on. And then we get you registering for shifts. We use volunteer sign up primarily for that, and I can give you all those links when the time comes. So now, what are the benefits to you as a Texas Master Naturalist? We're saying all these things that we need. So what are the things that can help you? One of the most important things is do you get to enjoy special access to this sanctuary, which is again very treasured in the community, very quiet, wonderfully protected space. And being in there as a steward, you're not just a visitor anymore. You're somebody. This is part of your space. This is part of kind of your room, so to speak. And it is something that is very special. Having only worked there for 2 months, just knowing that I'm a part of that space has been pivotal to me. So I highly encourage you to come out just to feel what the space is like. And I guarantee you're going to want to be a part of what's happening there. Another thing that's great to be a volunteer at Edith Elmore is you get a discount on our Real Deal native nursery plants. And we mean that when we say real deal. So our natives nursery, which is also a Texas Master Naturalist supported program, we grow native plants to support bird habitat. As we talked about before, the birds are kind of an indicator species. And if the birds are doing well, the plants are doing well, the insects are doing well. So we make a big push in Audubon to support native plants along with our Bird Friendly Spaces program, which I can also talk about if people have questions. But these real deal ones, one I have to put a plug in on is that down at our High Island sanctuaries, we have some very, very old mulberry trees. And mulberries hybridize very quickly. So you have white and red mulberry trees that tend to hybridize and mix with each other. But these ones are so old, genetically, we're pretty sure they are 100% native Texas red mulberry trees. And we've been able to get a few hundred cuttings of those that are ready to sell and propagate. So very exciting stuff. If you were a volunteer with us, you'd get discounts on those real deal red Texas native mulberries to get some birds in your lawn. Also, spending time out with us, you'd get improved species ID for your birds, plants, insects, reptiles, and more. Just a couple days ago, we found 3 different colors of eastern hognose snake in the sanctuary. So again, even if you're not a birder, if you come out, there's so much wildlife in the sanctuary. I found out there that 5-line skinks climb trees. I had always thought of them as ground lizards, but sure enough, I've seen them climbing trees in our sanctuary. So all kinds of things to learn out there, ways to engage, and the more time you spend as a steward, the more you'll see. And also you'll know you're helping the mission of not only Houston Audubon, but Texas Master Naturalist, because our missions overlap. We're trying to maintain good native spaces, good educational programs, really be stewards for the Texas environment and help engage more people. And it's in a way that is nice and secluded, nice and engaged at the same time, which is a rare balance to find nowadays. And you're also helping us take the sanctuary to the next level, because we could use a little bit more volunteer help on those weekends to have maybe a little bit more programming, maybe a little bit more volunteer groups. As I said before, if you're feeling confident enough to it, and if it's something you'd like to do, you could even organize groups to help you on the days that you're a steward, because as a steward, you'd have the training and wherewithal to do that. So you could even help us get maybe some of our maintenance to the next level in ways that we presently can't do. So it's very, very exciting opportunity. So as far as contact information, as we said before, I'm Gabriel Durham. I'm the Houston Audubon Volunteer Manager. My email and my phone number are on the screen. And again, you can sign up with Texas Master Naturalist through the windows and venues of this particular meeting. All right, so we're right on the money, I think. So we're right on questions. We got 3 minutes.
All right. Hi. Thank you so much for that great presentation. That actually sounds wonderful. I wish I was close enough that I could go there, but I do plan on visiting. So, so let me see. I don't know if there is a question. Let me check here. No, we don't have any questions. I'm sorry.
I did not see any.
Okay. I do have a couple for you though. How many miles of trails are there in the sanctuary, and do you prefer that the master naturalists be at the entrance, or do you want them kind of moseying along the trails, interacting with visitors?
That's a great question. So I'm still pretty new and I don't have that number off the top of my head for the number of trail miles, but I've walked it myself a number of times, and I'd say there's at least a good couple miles of loops. It's very well looped, a lot of figure eights, so you can take quick loops, small loops, or you can take the full sanctuary loop, which at a brisk walk for, hale 33-year-old that I am, takes about 30 minutes, 35 minutes. So yeah, I'd say that's probably about a little over a mile or two for the longer loops. But we're very flexible with the stewardship role. So if you wanted to set up a booth at the cabin and just hang out on the historic cabin patio, that would be fantastic. We can set you up for that. The patio has one of the old school wraparound, porches, so you can see it kind of 360. And we have a bunch of bird feeders and drips near the cabin, so you'd be able to bird from there as well, watching the drips. But we'd like to have at least a little bit of movement just to keep an eye on the entrances near there, which would be pretty quick walks. We have one place where you could park, which is right near the cabin, and the rest are all trail access.
Very good. Thank you. I do have a question here. It says, if I'm not in the Houston region, are there opportunities with other Audubon centers to volunteer?
Absolutely.
And if I could add to that question too, what would be the process for a master naturalist to contact or get in touch with someone who manages those other Audubon centers?
So you can reach out to me and I can loop you in with folks, or as you could check out the different chapter websites. We are a part of Houston National Audubon. I haven't engaged or met with any of those state or national level folks yet, but I have the contacts with them through our executive director, and it's a pretty easy network to loop everybody in with.
Very good. Let's see. I don't think there were any other questions. Again, thank you, Gabriel. We really appreciate your time this morning, showcasing your wonderful project, and hopefully you'll get some volunteers for that.
Yeah, I'd love to have you all out. It's going to be a great, great time, even in the summer, because it's nice and shady. I mean, it's a bird sanctuary, so there's lots of canopy coverage.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And next up, we have, hold on, excuse me, let me get my agenda up here. We have Danny Milliken from the Houston Botanic Garden, and he's going to be talking about his project on Phenology Observation and Documentation Project. And Danny, do you want to go ahead and
unmute?
Yes, and you can also start your video as well.
Let me see. Do I do that?
At the very bottom of your screen, there should be something that says share.
Start video.
Oh, sorry about to share your video. You were on for just a second. Oh, there we go. I've got you now. Okay, very good. And then just click on share, And it looks like it's about to come up. And we see the first slide of your presentation. And feel free to go ahead and get started. I will join in. You'll see my video about 2 minutes towards the end to let you know that you've got 2 minutes left for Q&A if you're not done yet.
Okay, great.
All
Great,
right, we'll
sounds
go ahead
good.
and get started.
Yeah. Well, hi, how are y'all doing? I'm the Director of Education and Public Programs here at the Houston Botanic Garden. And we do a lot of different interpretation stuff. A few Master Naturalists are already docents here at the gardens, but this is a new project for us. But we're going to explore phenology. So if you don't know, that's the study of cyclic and seasonal natural phenomenon, especially in relation to climate and plant and animal life. So this is maybe a new word for some of you of stuff that you're doing all the time, right?
Dan,
Paying attention to, yeah,
sorry, can I pause you for just a second? You're showing us
course.
the presenter view slides.
Okay,
If
great.
you'll
Let me
go
figure it
to
out.
the top bar where it says display settings on
Dis-
the second one on the left. Top
Okay.
part. Perfect.
Um,
That's what we want to see right there.
Wait, sorry, I'm not exactly.
It's okay.
Oh, display
Whatever.
settings. I see
That
here.
one. And then swap.
There you go. Is that it?
No, I saw it for a second.
Nope, it looks good right there.
Okay, great. Great.
Oh, no, it went back.
Switching back.
It seems like where my mouse is. What about now?
It's on presenter view.
Okay. Display settings.
No, not yet. When you
That's
have your mouse at the bottom of your screen, you must have selected the other screen. You might try that.
Let me just do this real quick.
Okay, don't move right there. Wherever you just had it.
Right now or right now?
Don't worry about it. We can read it from where we're at. It keeps bouncing back and forth.
Okay, but right now it says phenology.
Right now we're good.
Right
Yes,
there,
sir.
it looks
Okay,
good.
great. I'm gonna stop touching my mouse until it's time for me to mute myself. Okay, great. So anyway, this is something you guys already do on a regular basis. You're out there paying attention to natural phenomena and trying to make it better. So I appreciate y'all, what you do. The program that we're beginning is called Budburst. It is both a website and an app. And it uses the tool that iNaturalist has, but it kind of makes the citizen science portion of it a little more targeted. And so we are kind of the first hub. Anywhere in the South, our nearest hub location would be a North Carolina Botanic Garden. So it's pretty exciting. We're doing multiple different projects in it. And, you know, don't be worried that the projects don't say phenology every time, because they are all phenology. So tracking pollinators, what's their track? What are their numbers? How are we doing in the Houston area? Are we seeing the native bees we need to see, the native butterflies we need to see? You know, all of that stuff. Tracking monarchs more specifically, egg, caterpillars, butterflies, milkweeds, all of that stuff. And really, it's kind of an action in paying attention to our natural environment. In the project we're doing, the kind of concept is that you come to the gardens and eventually kind of will unleash you onto the world after everybody's trained up. But you just you kind of bring your comfy chair or grab one of our comfy chairs, and you post up in a spot. You stay in one spot and you just watch the area that you're posted in to see what comes through. Maybe you've decided to pick a nice spot that has a bunch of salvia. Maybe you decided to go to a place that maybe there aren't that many pollinators, where there's bamboo or something like that. And you just track. You just track what's happening. You take pictures when something cool happens. And so obviously this is something you need a phone. That's a big tool. With the tracking monarchs one, you post up by some milkweed. So the big thing here is that we're paying attention to our local environment. So eventually Budburst will be educating school groups. It'll be part of our training when we bring in field trips, especially secondary field trips. Garden groups are getting signed up for it. And then eventually we want to just build it out to just garden guests, so they're ready to do it. It's really easy to use. It's a very important data collection on a lot of these populations that are failing. as we grow into it, we'll do some more advanced stuff, native cultivars, things like that. We'll do bird collection as well. Again, it's a partnership with the Chicago Botanic Garden, and we're really excited about it. The great thing is that whenever you come to do this, I can just get you a garden pass and you can come for free. So that's pretty exciting. We'll get you plugged into all the volunteer perks as you build hours too. We have quite a few. A little bit of a overview of what this program looks like. We have 2 programs we're doing within Budburst, pollinators and climate. And then you can see within it, there's these challenges, right? So people sign up for these different challenges. They really kind of get into it, and they really help lead you along. Again, it's powered by iNaturalist, so you have a lot of scientists that are helping out, and data that's just being there. Some of these are really fun. So I'm using Budburst to participate in City Nature Challenge because it's a little more user friendly. It's a little more kind of observation is a little bit easier, and it's delivering me, even though I am a knowledge specialist, information more accurately without me having to do quite as much work. So a couple of the challenges that we're doing, and these are in our research, right, is first flowers. First flowers is really neat because it's a walk around one. You're not staying in one place the whole time. You're walking around the garden and you're seeing as plants put on their first flowers, you're recording that. It's also like a lot of plants are emerging right now. A lot of our plants are kind of growing first. Obviously, dewberry that's shown there is already started a long time ago. In fact, we're eating our berries now. But this is a really fun one because it gets you move around the garden, really focused on flowers. Also, we have a lot of native spaces here, almost 70 acres of spaces that we're reclaiming golf course on. And this is where we really want to do the first flowers, is as we see those native plants popping up. One that's coming up real soon, a challenge that we need help on, is summer pollination. What native pollinators are doing work in the summer. And this is one where you find a station, ideally in the shade, and you spend 10 minutes there. It can be 15, but really 10 is what we're going for. And you start your timer and you just try to catch whatever you can catch in the place you've put it up. And then the summer solstice snapshot is really cool. It's another one kind of like first flowers, where we travel around and we try to get counts of everything that are happening and changing. And this one's really great for people that can commit to being here regularly, because trying to get it once a week, every day, just changes we see happening on a very regular basis. So, and then the big one, those 2, there's a lot of different programs in pollinators and climate. And we're doing training for these things. So it's not like we just expect you to show up and know how to do it. We'll be doing trainings for them where we're teaching volunteers how to do it. And y'all make incredible volunteers for this because you already know a lot of the plants we'll be seeing and a lot of the native pollinators we'll be seeing. The monarch and milkweeds is one of the ones they're super jazzed about because we have a lot of milkweeds in the garden, native and giant. And so that's something that we're kind of tracking, is to see what the monarch migration, how it changes, especially with climate change a little bit. And so this one, we have a lot of different areas. This is the one I'm going to highlight here. I've kind of did a practice run of it. You see, I took a little picture there with my hand. My hands are kind of small, but they look real beefy and meaty in this picture, even though they're, nice regular size hands. But I'm holding an adorable caterpillar. And then, so I put this picture into it, and it looked in the background, and it gave me the, Calotropsis gigantea, not a native milkweed, but it's one we have a lot of caterpillars on right now. And so then in the next phase, I can go to which observation type, which program. I'm already in our HBG team on this point, but then I can go to which program I want to participate in. And for this one, I would participate in milkweeds and monarchs, and I would just kind of be able to plug into that one, put it in. And what's cool about it is there's optional notes there. All this is on my phone, right? Optional notes there. I can do a little note. It already is getting time of day, location is already charted. But I could put in if it was cloudy, or if there were a lot of caterpillars, or whatever I'm seeing, I could put on there. If you run into some eggs, that's a great thing to get in there and do on this one. So we just really need help. Kind of, oh, I may have just changed our thing here, but and sorry, am I still visible, or did I start showing something
You
completely
are
different?
still visible. We can still see the screen of your hand with the caterpillar.
Okay, great. That's really neat, is that we'll have this opportunity for kind of tracking more notes, more information. They've really got it scientific, because it's great, because you stay in that spot for 10 minutes. That's what really makes it the same every time. So we can kind of like actually say we've got these controlled data points that we can do. And you know, once you're trained, we expect everyone to do it wherever they can. And because it's a beautiful app, it's kind of fun to get in there and do it. So if you want to help with this project, obviously go through y'all's thing, but here's our information. My email, if you have more questions, really, this is why my email is up here. If you have more questions, danny@hbg.org. There's our address. This is where we're doing the start of it. After people have done a little bit more time, we will send you guys out in the world to do a lot of this stuff. Doing it at your garden, doing it at your schools that you're helping out with, getting a group together, maybe with some mimosas or whatever, and doing one. We have Budburst trainings upcoming. They're not scheduled yet, but they will be very soon. And if we can get people to plan on 2 hours of observation a month, the best way to do that is to plan for 30 minutes or an hour in the garden and just change where you are a few times to get those 10 minutes. And what we need you to have is a working camera phone, and maybe bring a charger, because you'll be taking lots of pictures and you'll have your screen on the whole time. So that's kind of what we're asking for. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. It'll have you out in the garden. I can definitely get you in when you come to kind of participate. So we will have Budburst trainings online and offline and live, but the first two will be live.
Okay, so you just answered that question. Is the Budburst training online? Did you see that? You just answered that, right? I'm sorry.
Well, yes, now I see that I did answer.
Okay.
that.
So it's also online. And then another question I had for you is, again, the 10 minutes would be primarily individuals taking photographs of any pollinators visiting a particular plant. Is that correct? Or do you have like a grouping of plants in an area?
Yeah, it's kind of like wherever you want to sit. Whatever
Okay.
you're kind of tracking after, wherever you sit for 10 minutes is your zone. So anything you can
So
get
it's
a
not just
picture of.
one particular flower,
No,
it's kind of like your zone area.
no, we will have a more advanced kind of native R's kind of project later on, but this one's just like whatever pops up in your zone, insight. We don't want people walking around the whole time. The idea is zooming in.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it is primarily photographs versus a video, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's yes.
Okay. Let's see. Can you tell us about HBG? And
Yeah,
more about
the
that.
Houston Botanic Garden started September in 2020, and so only been up for 2 years. The Botanic Garden is a museum for plants. So we have about 10 acres of kind of finished curated gardens between our Family Discovery Garden, our Culinary Garden, and our Global Collection Garden. The whole property is 130 acres, so about 70 will be is devoted and will be devoted to conservation and native species. So that's a lot of the kind of conservation work, eliminating invasive species, and kind of really trying to save and protect the awesome post oak trees that we've got all over what was a golf course. So our soil is real compacted. We've got to overcome that, and our species were very limited. So if you can imagine a golf course, they only want the one species in the fairways. We're up to 48, so it's super excited to see kind of in a short amount of time the transition that has happened.
Thank you, Danny. We are out of time. There were 2 additional questions about budburst specifically. Would you be able, can you see those in the chat and possibly answer those?
Yep.
All right, if you would answer those in the chat. Thank you so much. And thank you for the presentation. It sounds like a great project for sure. All right, our next speaker is going to be Gabriel again this morning, and he's going to be talking on urban bird collision monitoring in the downtown Houston area. And Gabriel, let's see, are you on with us? I see you. So if you would go ahead and unmute and start your video and share your presentation, and feel free to get started.
All right, here we go again. Round two. How's it looking?
Very good. I can see it.
Awesome. All right, so back at it again. Again, for those that might have joined late or for the sake of the recording of the video, again, my name is Gabriel Durham. I am the Houston Audubon Volunteer Manager. I'm here to talk about our collision monitoring. But again, just to reiterate, Houston Audubon is a nonprofit devoted to the care of habitats for birds, the future longevity and diversity of bird species, and also to educate the greater public about birds and conservation. And again, they're a great mascot because birds are what's called an indicator species, because if the birds are doing well, we're doing well, the plants are doing well, the insects are doing well. So if you're not really into birds, believe me, there are so many other ways to engage with Audubon that is going to benefit naturalism as a whole. And we are part of Audubon National. So it's a national organization, chapters all over the country, and our chapter covers all of Houston and all the way down to the Gulf Coast, including Galveston, Bolivar Peninsula, and all those wonderful places. About 4,000 plus acres of properties managed specifically for native conservation and bird habitat. But today, I'm actually going to pivot from that because it doesn't have anything to do with any of those sanctuaries. It's actually about downtown. And this is actually really exciting because I know as a personal Texas master naturalist, I really get buzzed about the term citizen science. Sometimes it's one thing to go out and pick up trash, which is always needed and very good, but it's a different kind of excitement when you know the work you're doing is going directly to scientific studies, which this does. So let's get into what that might look like and what we're trying to do here. So collision monitoring has a lot to do with, if you've been hearing about, whether it's from Mayor Turner or the newspapers, what's called Lights Out Houston. So Lights Out Houston has to do with peak bird migration, which is happening right now. Peak bird migration goes about from April 22nd, which was ironically Earth Day, kind of a fun kickoff there, until about May 22nd. So we're right in the middle of it right now. And just last night, I found out from our conservation director, over 3 million birds flew over downtown Houston in a single night. A lot of people should be aware that birds migrate at night. One of the most amazing things I've recently found out is how birds navigate at night, which is that they actually see more bandwidth of the color blue than anything else on the planet. So they can actually see the magnetic warping of the field of blue in the sky towards north and south. So when they look at the sky, they see a darkening towards north that we can't possibly see. And they navigate with that wavelength of blue light. Now think about a lot of our downtown buildings, a lot of our new LED street lamps, a lot of our new LED car lights have a very, very high blue spectrum. And because of that, on top of windows that are everywhere and shiny and reflective, there have been a major increase of bird collisions onto buildings. So sometimes you walk around downtown, you might see a poor little warbler or grackle or something like that that has hit a window and is there in the street. Sometimes they're stunned, sometimes they might be dead. But believe it or not, we still need a lot more data about how that happens and why. And so in partnership with the Cornell Institute of Ornithology and Texan by Nature, we have this collision monitoring program going on. And it goes on from the beginning of March until the end of May. So we've got till the end of this month. But as I'll say towards the end, there are other opportunities as this is ongoing. But what does it actually look like? We're looking for collision monitors to study the impacts of these downtown buildings on migrating birds. So what we ask is that we get people to get up, usually 2 to 3 participants, because it's going to be early in the morning downtown. The reason that is because birds are migrating at night and they're coming in for a landing around sunrise, and that's when most of these collisions happen. Also, downtown cleaning crews show up usually or just after sunrise. And so if there are any birds that are in the street or around these buildings, the cleaning crews are going to sweep them up and take them away before they can be studied scientifically. And anybody who's a scientist out in the audience knows set and setting is very important. Where these birds fell, how they fell, the position of their bodies is all part of the science. So we're asking people to get up around sunrise to head down to downtown. So this is particularly good if you're an early riser, if you do a lot of early morning jogging or walking as part of your normal routine, or if you live downtown, it can be even better. I don't know how many students we might have in the audience, but this is also fantastic for UH students, our University of Downtown students. And because it's linked to citizen science, it can also be linked to maybe whatever biology class you're taking as some resume building material, all these kinds of things. So 2 to 3 people, because it's still a little dark down there and it is downtown, so we want to make sure you have a buddy system. And it's about a 2-mile loop that goes around different buildings. And then having done this a couple times myself, I can say this is another reason why you want 2 or 3 people. Because if it's just you walking the perimeter of the building, it adds another 3 blocks for every building you get to. But if you've got 2 people, you can kind of pincer around the building and save a lot of steps and time. Because when you get down there, we do want to check all 4 faces of the building. And again, having done it myself, it's very interesting. There are planters around the buildings. There's lots of what people call monkey grass or liriope. There's lots of small oak trees and things that people have put around buildings. So sometimes the birds are in those zones. Sometimes the birds are on the concrete and these kinds of things. So it is good to have a friend to be able to work your way around these buildings to see what you might find. And if you do find it, we do ask that you collect the birds. We have a whole collection kit we provide to you, parking passes we provide to you to make it as easy as possible. And usually we have pictures where we take pictures of the birds, upload them into iNaturalist. There's a little ruler to show how big the birds were, the position of their beaks, and all these kinds of things. And then once you've collected them into an ice-packed container, they're shipped straight off to Cornell and A&M to look for as much data as we can find about whether this bird, how this bird was traveling, what the weather was like that could have contributed to its collision. And the good news is some birds we find that are just stunned can actually be rehabilitated. We have a partnerships with the Texas Wildlife Rehabilitation Center, TWRC. They present as part of Texas Master Naturalist training. We actually take those birds to them and they do get rehabilitated. So it's not all dead birds. It's also some wonderful rehabilitation stories that are just as valuable as part of the data. So again, the job in general is very important. It's a bit harder of an ask because it's early in the morning. It's a good walk around these buildings downtown. But again, what makes it worth it is that this is going directly to ongoing scientific studies that are being published, that are creating real data, that are going to change the way we build our buildings. But more on that to come. So getting into the actual details so you can see them instead of me just rattling them off. It's every day. So that's one thing that is another reason we could use as many naturalists are willing to sign up for this. You could do it once. You could do it 3 times. You could do it once a week. We have some people who do it every other weekend because we do this every single day, every morning from March until May. And the good news is this also happens in spring. So if you can't, I mean, in the fall. So if you can't join us this season, we'll be starting up again in the fall, and we can talk about how to link you up with that if you need to have that kind of accommodation. Again, is at sunrise, and that changes depending on the season. So when we're in March, the shift actually starts to get earlier and earlier as sunrise gets earlier. But the good news about the fall is that as sunrise gets later and later, you can actually, it's not as early of an ask to get up and do this volunteering. This is location bound, so it's not something you can just go, like if you want to go to the medical center and do this, you can't do that. The permits are very specific to collecting birds. I remember that's covered also in Master Naturalist training. You can't just collect birds. And so this is only in downtown Houston. So this is only for folks who can make it to these buildings to walk these routes for downtown Houston. 2 to 3 people per shift. Buddy system is highly recommended. And also there is a training video required that talks about how to pick these birds up, how to catalog the various different scientific information. And I haven't confirmed this yet, so don't quote me on it, but I've got some people in the audience that might help. That video may count as some continuing education hours. So I'm going to follow up on that after this presentation. Here's a detail of how it works. So just like before where we had a map of Edith L. Moore, here's our map of collision monitoring. This is a good kind of anchor. This is the reflection pool of City Hall right here. And so you're essentially doing a large loop around City Hall. And the reason we have this building over here is that's Discovery Green. And with all the foliage and stuff, you can imagine this is also it's also a highly reflective building. So we want to make sure we check this one. This is what you would be given to let you know how to work your way around downtown. Certain days we go in clockwise, other days we go counterclockwise. And it's a very interesting activity that is very educational about the urban conservation as opposed to all these other places where we go into wild spaces. This is a very unique urban conservation activity, which is very important in the future of the cities. So for onboarding, about how to get involved, as we've said before, go through Texas Master Naturalist SurveyMonkey sign up that will link them directly up with you as they explained throughout this presentation. Or you can email me directly, volunteer@houstonaudubon.org. And you can also watch the training video once you've emailed me there, register for shifts, and then after that, you can begin monitoring. So that's about all it takes. So the benefits for you in Texas, which I think is very important to reiterate, this is real deal citizen science. This is something where you can actually know the direct study it's going to. It's not like some big pool that you've just taken a bunch of master naturalist photos and they're sitting in there and they're research grade and somebody may use them eventually. It's not like that. This is something where this is directly related to an ongoing project. And as a matter of fact, I'm talking with Cornell right now to try to make sure that we get some appreciation for our volunteers. So you can look forward to the fact that Cornell will know what you're doing and will tell you about the contributions that you're making to science, maybe even some publications, which would be wonderful to know. So if you're really into trying to get in some citizen science under your belt, this is a bona fide project that I think you would be very fulfilled by, especially if you're a bird person. Also, as I've mentioned before, we've got some decline going on in migratory bird populations. It is pretty alarming, again, as they are indicator species. If these are going down, that means that there's other problems going on in the biosphere that they're indicating through this stress. So by doing this work and by generating this data, you're going to be able to change how we imagine cities, how we disperse grant money, all these kinds of things. I can speak from experience, having worked for the University of Houston in the architectural departments. When people emailed them about bird collisions, they want to see the data. They want to see what the best strategies are, not because they're trying to shut it down, but because they want to invest their money the best way they possibly can to protect these birds and build lasting buildings. So, big deal. I see the faces come on. So I will wrap this up. So here's the project contact information. Here's the person monitoring for dead birds, and we have this to share, and then we have room for questions.
Thank you so much, Gabriel, for this really important project, for sure. I don't see any questions per se, but I do have one for you. I know that some of the participants today may not be in the Houston area. I know that this particular project is also being done in San Antonio and some other large metropolitan areas. So I assume the best way to participate in those other cities, should some of our participants be living in those areas, would be to potentially go through Audubon, their local
Yes.
Audubon chapters.
Yes,
Okay.
because this is through Lights Out Texas, which is a huge initiative. It's also going on in Dallas and Fort Worth. So if we have people watching who are in Dallas and Fort Worth, they can also help out. The monitoring sessions are the same. So it's not like they're a month different or anything like that. So it would still be March through May, and it would still also then be about October through December, which is our migration north and migration south when they use Texas as this major flyway. So if you have trouble getting in touch with any folks at the Dallas Audubon or San Antonio Audubon, I can help link you up with those.
Okay, thank you. And then does Cornell have info on handling and shipping?
So yeah, no, we handle all that for you. So
Okay.
when essentially, long story short, say you find a bird, you take all the pictures of it. It's a lunchbox. It's one of those freezer lunch boxes that you can put in the freezer and it freezes the whole lunchbox kind of thing. You put the bird in there in a plastic bag, wrap it up. We give you gloves and everything too, just in case. And so you put that up and you just bring it to Houston Audubon headquarters at Edith L. Moore, and then we ship it off and all that for you. So all you got to do is get it to our sanctuary.
Okay, we just have a few seconds. Is the information shared with a particular architectural group?
Not a particular one. These are, from what I understand, going into major publications for citizen science. I have some people I refer it to because it's personal, but I don't want to disclose. I don't want to point fingers, but I do send it to some people that I want to change some windows. Let's just say it that way.
Awesome. All right. Well, Gabriel, thank you again for another great program this morning and a great project this morning. And hopefully we'll get some Houston volunteers to help you out on both.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for having me.
Mm-hmm. All right. Our next speaker coming up is Allie. And let me, there she is. Awesome. Hi, Allie. Good morning. She's going to be talking about Texas Stream Team statewide citizen science program that she's involved with, and it's Allie Schlant with the Meadows Center for Water and the Environment. And whenever I saw your screen up for just a second, or maybe that was Gabriel taking his down. I thought it was yours. Okay, now I see yours. Yes, ma'am, you're up, and I can hear you, so feel free to start.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Allie Schlant. I am the Program and Outreach Specialist over here at the Meadows Center for Water and the Environment, and I will be talking to you guys about Texas Stream Team, which is a statewide citizen scientist water quality monitoring program. So just a little bit about Texas Stream Team. So Texas Stream Team was founded in 1991, so meaning we just celebrated our 31st anniversary. We had a big 30th anniversary party just this last fall. And we were founded actually by the TCQ at first. There were a couple of employees at the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality who realized that it would be nearly impossible to gather a complete picture of the water quality of all of Texas's rivers and streams, because we all know Texas is a huge state, and it would be impossible to get out to every single river and stream and waterway in the state to understand and assess the health of them. So they were started as Texas Watch at the TCQ, and then in 2006 we were moved over to the Meadows Center for Water and the Environment, and we were officially named Texas Stream Team in 2008. So we were actually funded by the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality and the EPA through the 319 section of the Clean Water Act that provides funds for programs that deal with non-point source pollution management. These are a few of our partners that we work with, so the Texas State Environmental Service Committee, among the few, the Lions Club, the Troll Foundation, Blue Triton, the Meadows Foundation, and of course the EPA and a few very generous individuals to help. So where we work. Sorry, I just got a comment that I can't hear well. Can y'all hear me now? Where we work. So we actually work all across the state of Texas, and we are not location bound whatsoever. And we have over 400 monitoring sites across the state. But we are physically based at the Meadows Center for Water and the Environment, and we are a research and education center where we focus on water quality research and how it impacts basically every aspect of our lives. And our mission is to facilitate environmental stewardship by empowering a statewide network of concerned citizen scientists, partners, and institutions in a collaborative effort to promote a healthy and safe environment through education, environmental education, data collection, and community action. And so within our 31 years of operation, we have trained over 11,000 citizen scientists. We have over 400 monitoring sites, like I mentioned, and we have over 100 partners helping us out. So just a little bit about our trainings and programs that we offer. How we operate is we operate under a quality assurance protection project plan, which is approved by the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, and this includes our training protocols and our monitoring protocols that we design. We then train trainers all across the state. So we train them in the monitoring procedures, and then we send them off to go and train other people in their areas. And they can then establish their own monitoring groups and have just a big system, a big kind of team of scientists that they can train to send out in their local areas and perform these water quality tests. So it goes us, Texas Stream Team, making the protocols, making the monitoring procedures, training the trainers, then train trainees. And we help them out by providing them training resources, resources for equipment, and then we also manage their data. So the data that is collected by these citizen scientists is then reported back to us, which then we upload to a statewide database, and which is then submitted to the TCQ to fill in the gaps that professional monitoring might miss, since they can't get out on a regular basis, or they don't even get out to some more remote areas of the state. So this is going through a few of the trainings that we offer. Our most basic training that most people get trained in is our standard core training, and it trains citizen scientists how to conduct tests on the conductivity of their waterways, the dissolved oxygen, the pH, the water clarity, and just basic field observations. And they use a specific kit that is designed for a Texas Dream Team to perform these tests. The next is we have a probe core training. It's the same parameters as the standard core, but except we teach you how to use an electronic probe kit, which can do all the tests that the standard core training does, except without the chemical tests. We also offer a E. coli bacteria training, and so it teaches citizen scientists how to test for E. coli bacteria in their water to detect the potential presence of fecal contamination. Our advanced training goes through the exact same parameters as the core training, but it also includes testing for nitrate and nitrogen, orthophosphate, turbidity, and stream flow. We offer a macroinvertebrate assessment biotraining, which you can assess the health of your lake and river and stream based on the aquatic insects. So what you do is you go up and you kick up some dirt and you scoop up sediment and you pick out the bugs and insects and macroinvertebrates that you find in the water, and those can act as an indicator species on the health of your waterway. And then we also offer a riparian evaluation training. Teach you to assess the health of your waterway based on the riparian vegetation in the land and the body of water, so your riparian area. In all of these trainings, they can be done in one day. Usually it's about, depending on the training, and with it's a more advanced one, it takes usually about 3 to 4 hours to complete the training, and it's done in 3 phases, but it can be done in one day. So the data that our citizen scientists collect is super important because, like I said, it fills in the gaps that professional monitoring might not hit. Because in professional monitoring, they might go out maybe 3 or 4 times a year to one site, but our citizen scientists, specifically with our standard core monitoring, they go out once a month, so it creates a whole complete picture of the health of their waterway. And it can also act as kind of like a first red flag warning based on the data they collect. So we assist state agencies in determining sources of pollution. We support watershed protection plans and TMDLs. We use the data that citizen scientists collect to create our own data summary reports based on different watersheds throughout the state. We use the data that citizen scientists collect for our research projects, and other entities use our data for their research projects. And we also submit it to the EPA, and we also have a big public database that we maintain and manage with all the data that's collected. You can access it through our data map and data viewer. So this is actually very important science that is being done, and it's valuable and valid data that is being collected by these citizen scientists. So how can you guys get involved? If you can get involved by attending a training. So we have a bunch of different partners all across the state that lead their own trainings, and you can see who is leading a training by going to our website, texasdreamteam.org, and look at our calendar. They usually submit when they're holding their trainings, and you can sign up through them and become a trainer. So if you are already a citizen scientist, and if you've been monitoring for, I think, a year, you can sign up to become a trainer yourself and lead your own trainings in your own area. And you can become a partner. So a bunch of Texas Master Naturalist chapters are already partners with us. I think to name a few, the Goodwater chapter is a partner. The Alamo region, I think their name, is a partner with us. So they have a network. They are a group of citizen scientists that have a group that go out and monitor their waterways. So you can get involved by becoming a partner and creating your own team to go out and collect data and send it back to us. And if you are interested on becoming a trainer, if you have you can go to our website and look at our forms and resources. and look at the trainer resources for the details to become a trainer. And then also we have resources for future and current citizen scientists. So if you have any questions, sorry, I think I went through that pretty quickly, but that's our email, our general email that we kind of go through all of our inquiries. Check the txstreamteam@txstate.edu. You can email that number to get involved, or if you have any more questions or have any more information.
Thank you so much, Allie. Appreciate it. I do have a question in the chat. They were wondering, Vicky was wondering if they are pre-designated sites for the monitoring efforts.
We have pre-existing sites that have already been created and are being actively monitored, but some of them are not. The citizen scientists are not actively monitoring it. So if you go to the data map that we have, you can see a list or a map of all of the active and inactive sites that are available to be start monitoring. So you can either select, or in the process of getting trained, you can email us and get assigned to an inactive site that's already existing, or if you want to, if you say you have a stream or a creek in like your own backyard that you want to monitor, then you can create that as a site, establish as a site where you would email us. We have a form that you fill out where you have the name, you send in the coordinates, and you send a picture, and we enter that into our database, and that is a new site that you can start monitoring. So you can either take a site that's been established and no longer actively being monitored, or you can create your own site.
Very good. Another question is that you mentioned several monitoring kits and opportunities. So if an individual adopts a site, do they do all of those at that site? And do they do them all in one day or over the course of maybe 2 or 3 days if they need to?
So it just depends on what training they're doing. So usually everybody gets trained in standard core first, because that is a prerequisite to get trained in all the other trainings. And to monitor for the standard core, it usually only takes about an hour. So 1 hour out of your day, once a month, to go out to your site and perform all these tests. And then you send the monitoring form into, if you have a group, you send it to your data coordinator, sends it to us, or if you don't have a group, you send it to us directly.
Okay.
So it depends on which test you're doing. So standard core, about an hour. E. coli can take 1 to 2 days because you have to incubate the samples, and I think advanced probably takes about 2 hours because you have a couple more hands-on difficult tests you have to perform.
Okay. And how does a Master Naturalist chapter become a partner?
So let me get back to you on that. I have our program coordinator, Aston Navarro. Some of you guys might know her. She is the guru on getting everybody involved. So I can send you guys a link in the chat on how to get signed up as a partner. But I think there's a form you sign up on, and I think you have to be, at least one person has to be a certified trainer, and then they can start building their own little group.
All right, awesome. And I'm sure they can probably reach out to you if a day later they decide that their chapter wants to join, and then you can link them up. Okay, very good. I don't see any other questions. Oh, yes. Oh, okay. So we do have a break coming up at 10:30. Wait, it is 10:15 to 10:30 is our break. So Allie, unless you have anything else you want to mention before heading out? No?
I think that's it.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your project information this morning. Another great project for participants to join. And this is a statewide project, just for those of you that are coming in a bit late. So, and so we do have a 15-minute break coming up, and then we will start at 10:30. So if you'd like, please feel free to join us about 10:29, and I'll be introducing our next speaker at that point. Erin, if you'd like to go ahead and join us, you can go ahead and get your video up and unmute yourself. Good morning.
Morning.
Just wait a few more seconds before we get started. And Erin, I'll pop in probably about 3 minutes. You'll see my video pop in, and that'll just kind of give you a 1 minute heads up that you have about another minute to finish up, and then we'll offer about 2 minutes of Q&A.
Okay, great.
If that works. If you need the full time, I'll give it to you, but
Yeah, no, that's
just
totally fine.
so you know. Okay.
Thanks.
All right, we are at 10:30, so let's go ahead and get started. This morning we have Erin Postomis. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your last name. She's with the USA National Phenology Network, and she's going to be talking about her project on time to restore, connecting people, plants, and pollinators. And if you want to go ahead and share your screen, which does look like it's popping up, and I see it. It is, okay, it is in presentation mode, so feel free to get started, Erin.
Excellent. Thank you so much for having me. Yes, so I'm Erin Postomis with the USA National Phenology Network. And you're probably already familiar with the term phenology, but basically we're just talking about seasonal events of plants and animals. So we are a national network. We actually work with people all across the country. We work with volunteers to collect information about phenology. We also work with groups like the National Park Service, nature centers to help them set up their own platforms to collect phenology information. And then we also deliver all kinds of phenology information, from forecasts of when pests are going to be active to forecasts of invasive plants, all things that kind of help people make decisions or understand the field of phenology. So I'm really excited to be talking to you all today about a specific project where we are looking for volunteers in Texas. We really love working with master naturalists. We find that they make excellent phenology observers because you all are very good at paying close attention to things that happen in nature, and you have a lot of those identification skills and things like that that make excellent observers. And I'm actually a master naturalist myself here in Tucson with the Pima County Master Naturalist. So very near and dear to my heart. So what I want to talk to you all about today is a specific project called Time to Restore. So this is actually a project we are working on in collaboration with a number of partners across what we call the South Central region, which includes Texas as well as Oklahoma, New Mexico, and Louisiana. And this is a project that's funded by the South Central Climate Adaptation Science Center, which is part of the U.S. Geological Survey. And with partners, including the Tribal Alliance for Pollinators, the Bosque Ecosystem Monitoring Program, and then the Gulf Coast Phenology Trail, we are working to try to help people who are working on pollinator restoration. So you might be familiar with something like this PDF. So basically, people who are trying to understand, when is a particular plant going to be in bloom, they might refer to something like this planting calendar. And this gives them general information for different species about when things might be blooming at different times of the year. Generally, it's a rough idea of, between May and June, or in the spring or the summer. So it's not a very specific calendar, but it does give a general sense of when something might bloom, which can be helpful if you're trying to offer plants for particular pollinators to be able to cover that season of activity to support and make sure there's nectar available for those pollinators. But these resources often have some limitations. Some of them are not very specific to location, so it might be for the whole Southwest region, or even like the southern part of the country. If you're lucky, you might find one at the state level, but they're not often that specific. And then they're also not very granular in terms of the time of year where it says that things will be blooming. So it might tell you, those months or a particular season, but it's not very specific with the timing. And then also, it does not include information about how potential climate changes might influence these bloom times. So there's an idea of something called a climate analog, which is kind of reflected in this map here, where you're in your location in the future, it might actually be having conditions that are more similar to a different location, maybe somewhere south of you or lower elevation. So what we're trying to do with this Time to Restore project is to give more specific information about when nectar plants are going to be blooming, also when those plants are going to be having seeds that could be collected to, for seed harvest and then replanting. And then also to bring in that information about how future climate conditions will impact the timing. And so with this project, we really need a lot of data to be able to develop enhanced pollinator planting guidance. You know, to be able to say to someone who's trying to do restoration, these might be good plants for your area because they are going to be suitable for future conditions. They might be able to withstand these extreme weather events like that major freeze that you had last year. So trying to bring in that kind of climate-informed guidance. So what we're focusing on this year and next year for this project, and hopefully beyond that in the future, I'll get to that, is we are trying to focus efforts on collecting information about specific species. And so this is a list of 8 different plants that we've identified in the region based on input from a variety of different stakeholders, including people from the Fish and Wildlife Service, different parks and recreation places, the different states, people from tribes. We also had people from NGOs, nature centers, Audubon centers, everyone who's kind of involved in pollinator restoration. We brought them all together in a series of workshops last fall to ask what are the top species that you're kind of thinking about that are really great for pollinators in your area. And I've realized that there are so many more species in this, but what we're trying to do in the next 2 years is just to really kind of focus in efforts. If we can really get everyone to focus on these 8 species and collect as much information as they can, then we can really use that data to try to create that information about when are these plants blooming in different areas, when are they going to seed, and then start to look at the relationships with climate. So things like, does temperature influence when they flower? Does precipitation influence it? We really need quite a bit of data to be able to do that. So what this project is all about is collecting information about flowering and seed timing on these different species. And so we are interested in having as many volunteers as we can do this. And so what it involves is finding one of these 8 species to track anywhere near you. It could be in your backyard. It could be a nearby location, someplace you go to frequently. And there's 2 different ways that you can collect the data. You can use the USA NPN's program called Nature's Notebook. This involves repeated observations made over time at the same locations, or you can use iNaturalist. We're also going to be pulling in data from iNaturalist at the end of the project. And so if you're interested in, maybe you're already an iNaturalist user, just take as many pictures as you can of these species in flower or in the seed phase, and that will be super helpful. So we're really interested in capturing especially the start of when flowering happens, the peak in when the most open flowers are on the plants, and then when does the flowering time end? And then the same thing for seeds. So when does the seed timing start? When are the most seeds on the plant? And then when does it end? And so to do this, it really involves making these repeated observations. So with a program like Nature's Notebook, it's really well suited for that because we'll have you set up a site that can be your backyard or another place you go to frequently. You'll register plants or patches of plants, and then you'll go back to those same places over time. And for each time you visit, you'll fill out this kind of data sheet right here, where you're saying, do you see, especially these questions here, you can also answer the leaf questions, but we're really interested in the flowering and the fruit question. So do you see flowers or flower buds? Do you see open flowers? Do you see fruits, which are the seeds? Or do you see ripe seeds? And then each time you'll say yes or no. And you can also answer some questions about how many you see. And then that will really help us to capture this information. So what we're really after is this kind of graph here where you can see this is when the flowering starts to happen, and then this is when the peak happened, and then it ended. And that's really the time period that is helpful to know about for pollinators. So when was the most nectar available on these plants? So we do have a lot of different training resources available. And this is the training resources we have for Nature's Notebook. So we have an observer certification course that you can go through on our website. And you can do just the basic module that takes about 45 minutes. Or we have more advanced modules as well if you really want to get into knowing about the different aspects of botany that are kind of behind what you need to know for Nature's Notebook. And then, getting into how to answer these questions about intensity and measuring and different aspects of that. So there are different modules that you can do, but we definitely recommend just the basic one. And then we also have a really nice printable guide called the Botany Primer. And that has tons of really great photos, and it really gives you a great overview of botany. So that's a really nice resource as well. And you can print the PDF yourself if you want, although it is 80 some pages, so it's pretty long. Or you can order a copy. We have a place set up where you can get it printed and sent to you. The only thing that you really need to know ahead of time, kind of a mandatory skill, is being able to identify the species. So I'm sure there's lots of resources out there for Texas to help you identify species, but we are interested in people that can find these species that we're interested in and then observe them. But beyond that, you don't have to have any specific skills about botany. You know, you'll learn a lot in the observer certification course. And then also the information on the data sheets will really help you to answer the questions. And then as far as iNaturalist, I know they have a lot of training videos and things set up as well on their website. So what are the benefits for you? So the major benefit is you will be helping support pollinators in Texas and across the South Central region. So we're really interested in trying to give people doing pollinator restoration all the information they need to be able to do successful restoration plantings. So your data will really help with this. It's also very flexible in terms of how much time you spend. You could do iNaturalist, you know, just whenever you want to when you're out, just spend a couple of minutes a week. Or you could set up a site in Nature's Notebook with multiple plants of different species and spend, you know, 10 to 30 minutes a week if you want. Or you could even do multiple times a week. So really the time you spend is totally up to you. You can also observe on your own schedule and independently. So you can decide when you go out. You can, you know, pick a couple days a week or just one day a week and really make it your own schedule. You can also, if you'd like to do this as a group, we have what's called a local phenology program. And we use these for people that are at Master Naturalist chapters or people at a nature center or an Audubon chapter, maybe a national park, where they have multiple people that want to do observations together at the same locations. So I can give more information about that to anyone who's interested. And then you'll also really get to know these species. So once you start making repeated observations over time, you'll start to see these little small changes that happen. You know, you'll start to notice when a flower bud opens up into a flower. You'll start to notice when a flower turns into a fruit and really pick up on those small changes. And it really will make a difference. So we're really interested in your data for Texas. We don't have very much data there, and it's a huge state, so we're really counting on having a lot of volunteers collect this kind of information. So here is my contact information if you have any questions, and I can also put it in the chat, but I would love to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you so much, Erin. Pollinators definitely are important for our landscapes that we love in Texas. So all this data definitely is important. I do have two questions. And the first one is there a specific start or end date for the project?
Yes, thank you. So it's starting now. We already have people that are doing observations, and really we don't know when the flowering timing will end for all these species in different parts of Texas. So it's really as long as you see that flowering or seed timing happening. We are definitely going to be going through next summer. That's kind of when the official end of this project is. But we're hoping to get an extension on our grant. We're going to be applying for future funding. So we want to extend it out and have it go for more years after next year as well.
Awesome. And do you document captive or cultivated specimens? I'm assuming. Well,
yeah, we have the ability to put lots of what we call metadata, or the information about the plant. So you can put in, a plant that's planted and watered and fertilized in your yard, and you can include those details about it as well, because we do want to make sure we can separate out the natural versus the cultivated plants.
Okay. And I believe, someone missed your contact information, but that will, you put that in there.
I put my email in the chat, yeah.
What areas of Texas, Central Texas, shout out?
All areas, yeah. And I
To
realized that you might be in a place where those 8 species don't exist, but you can still observe, other species that are on the Nature's Notebook list, or other nectar species that as a master naturalist are important for pollinators. And we may include other species in our study going forward, but we are just trying to focus right now on those 8 species.
Okay. I don't see any other questions. So with that, I thank you kindly for this great project information this morning, and hopefully you'll get plenty of volunteers. We
Awesome.
need them
Thank you so
across the
much.
state.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right, we have about 1 minute before our next presenter. And let me just get my agenda up. And let's see. And Elena, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and bring up your presentation, that would be awesome. So Elena Burke with North Central Texas Council of Governments is going to be presenting her project next on Trash-Free Texas, Adopt a Spot, Litter Cleanups. And Elena, I don't see you yet. And if you would just say something so I can see that you're unmuted. And it should be at the bottom of your screen where you clicked on share.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I don't
Do
know
you
if you
have a
can
video
see
or no? I'm sorry?
I do have video. I'm just trying to figure out. I can't see the bottom of the screen.
On mine, it normally
WebEx is tricky like that, Elena. You might have to stop sharing in order to start your video to get that button back.
Okay. Sorry, guys. I'm not seeing.
and that's okay if
I'm not even seeing where.
that's quite all right. We can hear you, so I don't want to take up time. We can see your presentation, so instead of messing with that, if you want to go ahead and just get going, you're going to be presenting a second one, so maybe on the second one I can get you. So feel free to go ahead and get started.
Okay. Sorry, everybody.
No problem. No
I
problem.
can't do that. Maybe I'll figure it out later, but thank you for having me here today. My name is Elena Berg, and I am an Environment and Development Planner at the North Central Texas Council of Governments in Arlington, Texas. The North Central Texas Council of Governments, or NCTCOG, is a voluntary association of, by, and for local governments to assist in regional planning. And regional planning can be in various topics, mainly transportation, but in my area, it is environmental planning. And we are one of 24 regional councils in Texas. And our border covers the 16 counties surrounding the Dallas-Fort Worth region. And I am happy to be here today to talk to you about the Trash-Free Texas Adopt a Spot Litter Cleanups Project. What is Trash-Free Texas? It is a website deployed in 2018 through grant funding from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, and the website can be found at trashfreetexas.org. This website hosts a map, the Trash-Free Texas Adopt a Spot map, that displays litter cleanup sites in Texas. And these sites are added to the map by any entity that has a litter cleanup site. It's usually a community, a town or city that has a site that needs regular cleanup, but it can be a nonprofit group that adds a site or several sites to the map. And it is the site coordinators who are in control, who have the autonomy over the frequency of cleanups and the timing of cleanups. That is not coordinated in any way at NCTCOG, so that would be done between the volunteer and the site coordinator. And this project, basically what we need is volunteers to adopt sites, pick up litter at those sites, and to record the litter picked up to the Texas Litter database, which is maintained by Keep Texas Beautiful, and it was just rolled out in July of 2021, so it's fairly new. And the Texas Litter Database is a website that anyone can access who has internet access, and it is at txlitter.org. And it's fairly straightforward to use, but you will need an account to set up to use the Texas Litter Database. The project expectations and outcomes is to increase the use of the Trash-Free Texas website, and more adoption of litter cleanup sites from the Trash-Free Texas map, and therefore more litter removed in Texas, And a very valuable component that you could add to this project, besides removing litter, is recording the litter data that you collect from your cleanup event to the Texas Litter Database, which is available to all in Texas, and everyone can view that data and use that data instead of it being siloed within each community. And the photos on your screen show screenshots from the Trash Free Texas Adopt a Spot map. So you can see the spots are there and they're categorized by whether they're already adopted or available. And you can also see that most of the sites are kind of hovered in the Dallas-Fort Worth region, since we've been helping and encouraging our communities to do so, but we've also been reaching out to the Houston area as well. So hopefully you won't be hindered by not finding sites in your community. But the next project I'm going to speak about could help with that as well. So I apologize if you can't find a site where you live, but you could help with the other project I'm about to speak about. And there's the Texas Litter Database pictured for you as well, used with permission from Keep Texas Beautiful, one of our partners. The project logistics, there's no set number of volunteers. The time commitment and frequency would be coordinated between the volunteer and the site coordinator, and also your time commitment. So there's no schedule. It's entirely flexible. You can do it when you can and as you are willing. And the timeline is ongoing forever. You can use this site. Hopefully it will always be available. Project experience, equipment, advanced training needed. The site coordinators will likely have supplies for you to do this cleanup through the adoption. And when you're reaching out to them, I don't know if I mentioned already, but when you click on a spot on the map, a pop-up window appears with the site coordinator's contact information, their phone number and email, so you can reach out right away. No advanced training is needed. The Texas Litter Database is pretty straightforward. That would be the only training you would need, is understanding how to enter your data. You would need to set up an account, and there is resources available on the Texas Litter Database, how-to videos, recordings of past webinars. Keep Texas Beautiful also has an email account specifically for Texas Litter Database questions, and they are really good at answering those questions. And the site coordinators may have a tag for the data that's entered for that entity, but they may not, because as I said, the Texas Litter Database is fairly new. It was just rolled out last year. So, but it'd be good if you ask the coordinator if they have a tag, so that all the data for their community is in one location in the database. The benefits for you: caring for the environment, helping to remove litter, which is very detrimental to our environment, our wildlife, accidentally ingested. We have plastics accumulating on the Gulf of Mexico coastline. We have litter that's hitting flowing into the Gulf of Mexico from our streams in Texas. And the economics, the top populated 9 cities in Texas are estimated to spend $50 million a year on litter abatement and control efforts. You can be outside at a time and place of your choosing, and this project has 100% flexibility for scheduling, but the frequency, I can't say. You'd have to coordinate that with the site coordinator. We are working hard to get sites added to the map, but now we really need volunteers to get engaged. And what a better group than the Texas Master Naturalists, who are not only conscientious, but have that ability and perseverance to add the data to the Texas Litter Database as well, to be a great example. You can add that data in any level of detail you choose, by the type of trash, number of bags. Texas Litter Database will take it, and we will be so glad that you add it. And so you'll be like volunteer pioneers of the Trash Free Texas website, which would encourage more sites to be added to the map and more volunteers to use the website, and hopefully make it the go-to location for site coordinators and volunteers in Texas. And this is my contact information. You can contact me at any time. I'll be happy to answer you. And I am ready for questions if there are any.
Yes, there are, Elena. The
Okay.
first one is there are some great, I think it is AL apps like Literati that make it super easy for individuals to document, categorize, and automatically report litter. Any chance of working with other trash documenting app programmers to populate your database?
That would be a great question for Keep Texas Beautiful. I know that they are really hoping for this data to also be entered into the Texas Litter database. So maybe there's a way to download it into the database. That would be a question for them. Unfortunately, I couldn't answer that specifically, but yes, I'm aware of Literati, and so is Keep Texas Beautiful, but hopefully we can get that data also into the Texas Litter database.
Okay, another question is, what does documenting the litter, or what does documenting the litter help? Does it help for consideration of prevention, like dumping assessments or assessing dumping sites possibly?
Yes, that's a great question. Thank you for asking it. I forgot to mention, Keep Texas Beautiful is hoping that having this data all in one location for all communities, for all of Texans to see, might help with litter prevention programs, help with seeing maybe the types of litter that is a problem in what locations, and maybe even take this data to the Texas legislature to encourage more management of our litter. And we just need to get an understanding of the quantity and the locations of our litter, and it would really back up any arguments for next steps.
Can you go ahead and put your information, your contact information slide back up? Just back up one if you
Yes.
can. And then is there an opportunity for road signage to acknowledge the group that adopts the site?
That not through the Trash Free Texas website, but some site coordinators may do that because that's part of what we encourage our communities is that they have autonomy over how the cleanups are done. They didn't want NCT cog coming in and telling them how to do it. So I know some communities do, but some don't.
Okay, great questions, everyone. But I believe, let's see, Lucy S. tried Texas Adopt a Highway. I guess Lori's trying to show that. I'm not quite. Oh, she's referring to somebody in particular. Okay, so I think that's all the questions that we have so far, Elena. And we do have 3 minutes. I know you're up next again with another project. So if you want to go ahead and upload your next slide presentation.
Okay, hopefully you can see it on my screen. I combined them together, so.
Okay, very good. Yes, ma'am. I still
Okay.
am seeing it. So if you'll just hold on just another 3 minutes and see if
Sure.
we have any other questions.
Okay, if
We're
you
doing
wanted
that
to
just to
try
make
and-
sure if somebody's coming in, particularly for your presentation.
If you
Right.
wanted to try and troubleshoot your video sharing, sometimes when you're in full screen mode on WebEx, the buttons get hidden either at the top of your screen, in the bar that might be across the top, telling you that you are sharing your screen.
Okay, I don't even see the bar saying.
You might need to mouse over the top.
Yeah, you might have to
and
mouse
for it to
your
drop down. And the same thing for the bottom too.
Well, we've got a couple of minutes to mess around with it a little bit more.
Somebody said to get out of, what was it, the full screen, just like
mode?
press escape maybe and see if
Okay.
that helps. And that might give you.
So, do you have two monitors, Elena?
I do.
Okay, so look at the top of your both monitors. If you'll put your mouse at the top of both monitors, you should see a bar that
Oh.
retracts automatically.
Can you
There
see
you
this?
are.
Hi.
Yay.
See you. Yay.
Thank you.
So now you should be able to start your presentation.
Okay.
We still have just a few seconds.
Can you see my slides?
Let's see. I do not see
Yes,
slide.
unfortunately, you're sharing the the
Wrong
presenter
screen.
view. So if you go to display settings, on the top of that screen, do you see the 3 tabs at the top? One says show taskbar, one says display settings. On your notes view, there we
Okay.
go. Perfect.
Did it
We
work?
got you. Yes, ma'am. We can see you and we can see your
Yay.
slides and we hear you. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce you. Again, for those of you that may just be joining us, Elena Berg is presenting a second project. She's with the North Central Texas Council of Governments. And this next project is Ambassadors for the Trash-Free Texas website. So if you want to, feel free to go ahead and get started right now.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your help with me figuring out the technology. I am very happy to be here to talk to you about the Ambassadors for the Trash-Free Texas website. And my name is Elena Berg, and I'm with the North Central Texas Council of Governments, or NCTCOG, and we are based in Arlington, Texas, and we are a planning agency for the Dallas-Fort Worth region. The Ambassadors for the Trash-Free Texas website. Well, the Trash-Free Texas website, as we just discussed, is at trashfreetexas.org, and it hosts the Trash-Free Texas Adopt a Spot map, but it also hosts, and we are adding to the website, a lot of litter cleanup resources for both volunteers and site coordinators. And site coordinators are the folks who are adding sites to the map that need litter cleanup, and they're mostly cities and communities, as we mentioned earlier. And so you as an ambassador, if you choose this project, would be raising awareness about the website with volunteers and even with within your community, and encourage them to add sites to the Trash-Free Texas map, and encourage entities to become a Trash-Free Texas partner, which is just that they are willing to add their logo to the Trash-Free Texas website and show their support for our efforts. And that's all that they would have to do. You can assist communities or any other entity with the data entry needed to add their site to the map. The most complex data entry that's needed is the latitude and longitude coordinates for the sites. Unfortunately, at this time, you can just add a spot, a site, not a segment like a stream segment or a road segment. But in the description of the site, you can say, this is really a 1/4 mile segment from this street to this street, but it'll just be added as a site. A lot of communities don't have time to find the latitude and longitude coordinates and get it to the Trash-Free Texas website administrators. You could help with that. And you can find the latitude and longitude coordinates on Google Maps, which I didn't know. You may not be surprised because I'm not a technology person, but if you right click on Google Maps, you can get the latitude and longitude coordinates for each site. And encourage the use of the Texas Litter Database for trash collected in Texas, and assist as needed with creating social media and outreach. We have templates of PowerPoint presentations. We have templates of graphics already developed that you could use in this effort and share. Or if you are creative, you could make your own if you want. We'd be grateful for that too. I am not a creative person, unfortunately, so I'd be very grateful for that. Project expectations and outcomes increase the number of entities on the Trash-Free Texas Adopt a Spot map. Uh-oh. More volunteers in Texas reaching out to the site coordinators to add their sites. I don't know why it's doing this. Increased traffic to and data entered on the Texas Litter Database, especially with nonprofit groups in Texas who may not be aware of the Texas Litter Database. Increased traffic on Trash-Free Texas social media, and more awareness of Trash-Free Texas as a resource for volunteers and communities. So this could mean that you are reaching out to volunteers in your community, Girl Scout groups, Lions Club groups, and telling them about it, making a presentation to them. You can make the presentation virtually or go to their meeting if you want, but that would not be required. Because this project that I'm describing to you is a virtual project. You can do it on your time as you have time. It's completely flexible. There's no set number of volunteers. There's no set schedule. You can, if you want, but it's not required, go to meetings in your community and talk about the Trash Free Texas website, make a presentation on our lovely Trash Free Texas PowerPoint template. However you choose to reach out about this project, you can contact the Parks Department in your community and ask if there's sites that need regular cleanup or any type of cleanup. And the timeline for this project goes through May or the spring of 2023, but we can continue it if desired and talk about it at that time. The equipment needed is a home computer, and Microsoft Office would be ideal, might help you if you had it. You need internet and a phone, so you can do emails and phone calls. And I will offer a one-time virtual training about the project, the resources available, the Trash Free Texas website, and the templates and graphics and where they are on the website to help you get going. Be happy to do that. The benefits for you, again, caring for the environment. As I stated before, litter is not a great thing in our environment. Rain falls and the pollutants on the litter is leaching into our soil. The litter is getting into our waterways. About 80% of the litter in our waterways is derived from land-based sources. Help make Trash Free Texas the go-to location for litter cleanup volunteers and coordinators in Texas. Have the website on the tip of their tongues when they are thinking of removing trash. Help communities by providing a platform to advertise sites and having to maintain the technology. So we have a lot of small communities in our region who like having the website. They can use it and it's maintained by an outside party and they can show where they need help. I'm so sorry for my screen flashing. And the Texas Litter Database has one site for all our data in Texas. If you have never done outreach, this would be a great way to expand those skills and networking in your community. But if you have done outreach before, I would love to hear from you and get your input and advice on how to go about this. And the last bullet was to increase your contacts in your own community. You'll be reaching out to other groups in your area. Maybe you could find partnerships, working together just through discussing this project. There's my contact information again, and I'm happy to take questions if there are any. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elena, for that disco version. Thankfully, we saw all the information. It was just a little bit, I don't know what was causing that. That was a little bit odd. Let's see. I don't see any questions in the chat. Let's see. Nothing yet. And this is, like you said, a statewide project compared to the previous one. And that you delivered. And I did have one question from the previous one until someone has a question. Oh, let's see. No, I mean, the previous project that you presented, I was just curious. You mentioned it was primarily in the Dallas and the Houston area, but is it feasible for someone to, I guess, do something close to where they live, or would they need to be linked to a metroplex area?
In an ideal world where the Trash Free Texas website was set up as it was intended, there would be spots all over the Texas map to choose from to adopt. And but now there's only spots primarily in the Dallas-Fort Worth region and the Houston regions. And so that's what I meant. Like if you're in the Panhandle and you look at the Trash Free Texas map, unfortunately, you're not going to find any sites. So that's how this second project I was mentioning can tie into that. You can help add those sites. You can make that happen, reach out to your community and help them do that.
Very good. Pam was just saying thank you for these exciting opportunities.
Thank you.
Well, it doesn't look like anyone has, it must have covered it well. So we don't have any questions. And if you do have some questions, of course, you're welcome to reach out to her at a later point in time as well. All right. Well, thank you so much. And
Thank you.
we still have a few minutes. So probably have about, let's see, 10, so maybe 5 minutes. And if somebody needs to take a quick break, feel free to do that. We'll start at 11:15 with our next presentation. Thank you again, Elena.
Thank you.
Tiana and Ashley, which one of y'all is going to be sharing the screen for this next presentation?
Mary Pearl, it will be me, Tiana.
Okay, great.
Elena, if you are still there, there's a question in the chat. We do still have 5 minutes if you'd like to either come back on or answer it in the chat. I'll leave that up to you.
Thank you. I'm answering it now.
Okay, thank you. Again, if you're just now joining us, we are taking probably about another 3-minute break before we get started with the next presenter. So if you need to get a refill on the coffee or drink, feel free to do so at this time. Tiana, if you would like to go ahead and get your presentation up, you're welcome to share your screen.
Thank you. I will do that.
I've got it. It's looking good.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for the confirmation. Can you hear me without problem?
Yes. Yep.
Wonderful.
Loud and clear.
Thank you, Judith. Let me turn my video on.
And I can see you.
Oh, wonderful.
Welcome back.
Thank you for having us. I saw some of the previous presenters with slides from 2020, and I was just reminded of the first time we had the opportunity to present with all of y'all.
Yes. Can't believe it's already been 2 years.
I know.
It went fast.
I know. And sometimes it seems like it's been longer than 2
Yeah.
years.
That too, for sure.
Mhm.
All right, we've got just a few seconds left here. And then we'll get started. Okay, so Tiana Raymond with Botanical Research Institute of Texas is here to speak on the project titled Armchair Botanist, Community Scientist Transcribing Specimen Labels. And she is here, it looks like, also with Ashley, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, go ahead and get started.
Thank you so much. And first, just a big thank you to all of you organizers, because we've been participating in this program since 2020 when you held your first virtual volunteer fair. And we have certainly benefited from getting to know a lot more of your master naturalists across the state, which is pretty exciting, including maybe one that's in space right now. So that's kind of fun. But anyway, yes, welcome to the Armchair Botanist program. The program is so named because we are allowed to keep interacting with plants from the comfort of our homes. I know we all like to be outside, but sometimes there are accessibility issues or other issues like the hot summers here in Texas that keep us indoors. You're hearing from me. I'm Tiana Raymond. I am the collections manager of the Britt Herbarium at the Fort Worth Botanic Garden and Botanical Research Institute of Texas. My co-presenter, who will handle answering a lot of the questions and will remind me when I have missed something, is Ashley Bordelon, and you can see both our photographs on this slide as well as our videos. Let me advance. So the Armchair Botanists allows us to engage with these natural history collections in a virtual way. You are looking at one of the objects that I'm talking about today. So these are herbarium specimens. These are natural history collections that are preserved with data that are stored in publicly accessible facilities. One of many being the one here at the Botanical Research Institute of Texas. And I know y'all can't see this specimen, but when I tell you the name Lindheimer, Ferdinand Lindheimer, I know that probably rings a bell with a lot of you, as he's the father, known as the father of Texas botany. This is a Ferdinand Lindheimer specimen that we're looking at of a milkweed, for those of you with an astute vision and having a look at this. But currently, the Armchair Botany program is concentrating on digitizing plants of Texas and of Oklahoma. We have a National Science Foundation grant that's been granted for 46 different institutions across our 2-state region and beyond to digitize these specimens. And these specimens, each one of them is proof of the existence in space and time of the plant that exists on the sheet. And we have specimens that go back hundreds of years. So this gives us a really interesting look at changes in our landscape. Because they're physical specimens, it means we can sample them to look at the density of the stomata and how that changes over time and how that correlates with climate conditions, or many other things that we can't even imagine that we can do in the future. When these specimens first started getting collected, we didn't have the molecular technologies we do today to have a look at the evolutionary history of these plants. And we do now. So we don't know what use they will be in the future. What we do know is that these specimens are stored in those 46 herbaria inside cabinets, and they're not accessible. They're not accessible to everyone unless you have the means to travel, and they're not accessible to the kinds of studies we're able to do now, these big data studies where we can use these as data points. So what we need is, there's almost 2 million specimens that fall into that criteria of Texas and Oklahoma. And we would like to have your help in transcribing the information from these specimens via images that we put online. So what do we hope to get out of this? We hope that we will have accurate, reliable data as best as we can get it from these specimens from about 1.4 million specimens collected in Texas. There's an additional 0.6 million from Oklahoma that are covered on this project, and the intent is to make these publicly available. So the first image you're looking at on this screen up high says TORCH. That stands for the Texas Oklahoma Regional Consortium of Herbaria, and this is the website where we're putting all these data. This is accessible to everyone, so you can go and access these data immediately. And our hope is that we're going to engage a local community that's aware of the importance and the value of herbaria, of these natural history collections, the specimens that they hold, and also the expertise and the people associated with them, and really what these mean to all of us. So down to the nitty gritty, what is this Armchair Botanist project as we're digitizing Texas plants? Here's one of the big things. It is on your own. So you can do it on your own time whenever you're available. It's all through a third-party website called notesfromnature.org. This website has many projects on it covering many taxa, not just plants. But ours, of course, is restricted to plants. To do a single transcription or a single classification, it takes, depending on the specimen you're looking at and how much textual information is on there, anywhere from 3 to 6 minutes, I'd say. And it's open to all community scientists. You can be an anonymous user that logs in to transcribe a record. You can sign up for an account with Notes from Nature, and you can keep track of what you're transcribing. And it really, we can have as many volunteers as the website can handle. I don't think, knock on wood, that Notes from Nature has crashed yet. But we expect this project. So we've been doing, I would say, the pandemic, April of 2020. That's when we started really pushing this project. And then we advertised to Texas Master Naturalist as a whole in September of that year with the first virtual volunteer fair. And then we have weekly Zoom sessions to support the people that work with us. These are open to the public. Anyone can join. You don't have to have had transcribed in Notes from Nature, but we hope you will. And that leads me into this next slide. Oh, and I'm sorry, let me go back to that previous slide. So the two images you're looking at on this screen, the top one shows you the Notes from Nature landing webpage. And then the one below actually shows you what that interface looks like when you're actually transcribing a specimen. There's a photograph of a specimen that you can zoom in and out of. And then there's a little dialog box that asks you to pull information off of that label. And I'm telling you all that because it's rather important for the next step. So you do have to have access to a computer, maybe a tablet. I know some people that have used a tablet, even gone so far as to use a very large cell phone like a Galaxy Note that has internet access, because this is all accessed through the web. You have to be comfortable navigating web pages and searching for resources online, because sometimes you may have to do a little sleuthing to interpret what's written on a label. And then training. So because we're using this third-party website, notesfromnature.org, there's an inbuilt training or tutorial that you can use. But we do recommend, because having a deeper understanding of the anatomy of a specimen and what these labels all mean really is important in getting very accurate transcriptions out, which also minimizes, on the other end, any staff cleaning or any other work we have to do with the data. So there's a 1-hour training video that's available online that you can do independently. There's also the ability to schedule a live training event in person or virtual with Ashley or myself, or perhaps some other member of the team. And we can do this for a chapter. We can do this for a high school. We've done that before. Or you can attend a 1-hour Armchair Botanist Thursday event. And my next screen will tell you a little bit more about that. But we're very responsive, thanks especially to Ashley, who's over here. We answered questions on those Thursdays and we discuss it as a group because everyone has valuable information to share through email, or also there's a talk forum in Notes from Nature. All right, this slide is talking to you a little bit about our Transcription Thursday events. These take place almost every week, Thursday at noon, at the noon hour, and they're offered through Zoom. And Ashley and myself typically lead these events, and we often have guest speakers come in. And it's an informal discussion, presentation. We always prepare a few short slides, between, what would you say, Ashley, 2 and 10 slides that talk about different things that are inspired by things that have happened in the herbarium or requests of other armchair botanists that have sent in emails or told us about something at a previous Transcription Thursday event. So some of the examples are, we do plant ID. So we typically start off, we pull an image from iNaturalist, and with credited, of course, with whoever had uploaded it to iNaturalist, and we do a little quiz to see what plant, if everyone can guess what plant we have, and then we talk about why. We also do this with the preserved specimen, and I've included some images of those on this slide here. Botanical nomenclature, we talk about names a lot because that's one of the most difficult things to interpret on labels. Plant structure and physiology. So I think they talked about cleistogamy. I wasn't there last week, but we talked about reproductive strategies in plants, other life strategies like carnivory and parasitism, and Texas history and geography, and many, many other things, whatever topics come up. Typically, Ashley and myself prepare the presentation, but we also have other armchair botanists that present to us. We've had some really great presentations about geography and about photography from some of the group that typically attends these sessions. Everyone is welcome. The Zoom sessions are posted the morning of the event, typically on that website, brit.org/armchairbotanist. All right, here are the benefits. So we hope that for you, and I put you and us because I think this all is a full circle and it goes back and forth. But you can hope, if you choose to participate in this with us, to gain a better understanding of botanical and herbarium processes, how we document the natural history of our state, a familiarity with the Texas flora. We love questions, so you can always throw them up there. We'll certainly tell you if we don't know the answer, but we will go back and research it and hopefully collectively come to a conclusion as a group. And also a historical perspective on the exploration of our state. So I showed you that Linheimer specimen. We've come across Julian Reverchon specimens. And then I know it's difficult to read, but at the top of the screen right now, there's a portion of a photograph of a Charles Wright specimen. So Charles Wright was the boundary botanist who did the exploration of the Texas-Mexico boundary in the 1849, 1852. So the other thing is to become exposed to and more familiar with the online and physical resources so you can continue on your own botanical journeys. And then this last one is especially dear to me, but putting these specimens under the lenses of Texas master naturalists like yourselves that are interested in the natural world around you and knowledgeable about it helps us find the gaps. Right, because, you know, one of the wonderful things about iNaturalist, and hopefully many of you participated in the BioBlitz last week, I know I did, is that it opens so many doors to us, but we cannot take, you know, DNA extracts from an image. And so using iNat as a tool to help us prioritize where we need to collect and knowing what we have vouchers, what we have herbarium specimens for, they can be a really powerful tool to understand our natural world when we use them in concert. And we have one example of this. One of our armchair botanists, Sue Frary, is an Indian Trail master naturalist, and she's working on fleshing out the flora of Ellis County and a couple other surrounding counties for her chapter. And she's looking at what we have vouchered in the herbarium, so the data generated by volunteers, and then she's looking at for herbarium specimens, and she's looking at iNat records and figuring out, well, where are the gaps? What do we need to do to find out and document these things? So rather nice example there. And then just an additional plus, our volunteer services here at our organization asked us to put this together. You can choose, you don't have to, but you can choose to additionally become a registered volunteer with our organization. Some of those benefits are listed up on the screen. We can share this again with you. And then lastly, this is our contact information, and hopefully I'll leave us a couple minutes for questions. Oh, goodness. And just a big thank you. So since April of last year, we've had over 52,000 specimens transcribed by community scientists. Now, a significant portion of this is due to master naturalists. And I know this because we do get to see some exports. So just a huge thank you. We couldn't possibly do it without you. It's more fun and it's better and it's more accurate with you. So thank you. And I think I didn't see any questions. I didn't look for questions in the chat. So if there are any, Ashley can answer them.
Ashley already has answered some. For those of you that may not be reading the chat, there is apparently a noon, what was it called again? I apologize. The training or today at noon?
Yes, so we will have our weekly armchair botanist session today at noon.
Session. Thank you.
And I can resend that link if, yes, okay, I did send the link. So the Zoom link should be on that armchair botanist page. Yes.
Yeah, so those of you that may want to just get an idea of what this is all about, you could join that session and kind of see what's going on. So thank you again. This obviously is a very important project, like all of them. And Ashley, I believe you have answered all of the questions.
There was one more question, sorry, that you do not need specialized knowledge to participate. There was a last minute question.
Okay.
you will learn as you go. The more you do it, the easier it will be. And obviously it's great to have our weekly sessions to ask questions.
So you don't necessarily need to know anything about the particular plant that you're documenting. Okay, great. All right, well, thank you both so much again for coming back and offering this opportunity to all of our master naturalists. And with that, you are the last speakers, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mary Pearl so that she can wrap things up for us today. And thank you again to all of our speakers, and thank you also to all the participants that joined today. And hopefully you will find a project that will speak to you. And as Mary Pearl mentioned early on, the first 3 presentations today were for the Gulf Coast chapter, and then the rest are statewide for the most part.
And a huge thank you to you, Judith, for being our moderator, our MC, our host for the day. I loved that Tiana mentioned that we've done this 4 times now, and that they have seen the benefits of those volunteers signing up through the virtual volunteer fair each time that they've presented. So it's great to see familiar faces and to get refreshers on projects and updates on how those projects are evolving and moving and going, and thank you to them for doing that. As we kind of wrap up today, we just want to put a few more links in front of you. These are the same links that we've been dropping in the chat, but these are the places to go for all of the information that you may need as you are processing this huge amount of information that you received all morning. All of these different projects that we had presented today, they're all on our website on the Virtual Volunteer Fair-2022 page. Michelle's going to drop that in the chat here in just a second so that you guys can have that link ready and click on it as you're getting ready to exit today's webinar. But this is the place where you will get all of your contact information for projects. The link for signing up for projects is on this page. The catalog that has all of the full detail of information about those projects is all on that website. So that full catalog, it is, I think it was like 20 pages or so. Each project gave us a full 2-page spread on the ins and outs of their project. So what they presented in these short 15 minutes is the digest version. That full 2 pages has all of the information about that project, the who, what, where, when, why. And please check that out as you're signing up for projects, because that's going to have everything that you'll need to know. Michelle, do you want to talk about how to sign up to volunteer, and then wrap us up with how to log with VMS hours, both for attending today and then for the projects that they end up signing up for?
I'm just putting in the chat again the survey monkey that we've been sharing all day after each presentation. To sign up for any of the projects that were presented today that are applicable to you, or that you're interested in and are in your area, you can go to that survey. In that survey, it will be available we'll close out on June 1st. And then after that time, once we close the survey, we will share the lists of volunteers who have signed up for each of those projects with the project presenters or project hosts. And then at that point, the ball's in their court to get in touch with you, match your skill with a piece of the project, or get you signed up for a little bit of advanced training if there's different elements of advanced training that would go along with getting you involved in working on that project. So the chat, or the survey, is there in the chat. And then just another note to note again, there were over 100 volunteers joining us live today. And so obviously there are going to be more volunteers signing up for different project opportunities than there are spots available. So just be cognizant of that as you move forward. And let's see, if we move to the next slide. How to log hours today. So as a master naturalist, you are eligible to receive up to a quarter hour of training time or service time as for each of the the project presentations that you attended or watched if you're watching the recording of the virtual volunteer fair. And then the total maximum of time would be up to 2 hours, just depending, and that may be dependent upon each person, depending on how many of the project presentations from the host that you watched. There is a quick guide to logging your service hours there in the link, and we're going to share that link again. Or actually, if you go to the website where we have all of the information about the virtual volunteer fair, the link is there as well. And then logging hours for projects. Obviously, each of the projects will have to be approved, reviewed and approved. You'll need to submit that to your chapter and have it approved to be working on it to get started. And then once you do start working on the project, you would log your service hours in your chapter's VMS system.
And then I think that wraps it up. Our agenda was on here as well. As a reminder, those first 3 projects are noted as our Gulf Prairies ecoregion projects. We thank you guys so much for joining us for our 4th virtual volunteer fair. The recording of today's event will be posted, if not by the end of the day today, first thing tomorrow morning. And please sign up to volunteer with all of our fantastic partners. Thank you again to them, and to Judith, our MC for the day today. All right. Thanks all.